What does broken windows theory have to do with the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict? If you're not familiar with it, broken windows theory is a theory of policing that was used in New York. People were excited about it because it led to a reduction in crime, or so we thought, and as time has passed, it became clear that the theory was not necessarily accurate or useful. If you're not familiar with it, the overarching theory of broken windows theory is to over-police small crimes. The idea is that if you prevent graffiti and you prevent turnstiles from being jumped on the subway and broken windows, you clean up the neighborhood, then this will prevent more serious crime. There's a robust literature about why this way of thinking actually doesn't work, but I want to zoom in on one particular element of it. Cleaning up the neighborhood requires an idea of what a good neighborhood looks like. Spoiler alert, the whiter neighborhood. The title of this book is Messy. It's one of the 7 books that I read in 7 days for the series of videos I'm working on. But who defines what is messy? Robert Sampson and Stephen Raudenbush did a complicated psychological study that was able to assess people's perceptions of the messiness of a neighborhood. We would like to think that this is a function of some kind of objective perception. If we see more trash, if we see more graffiti, then it's an objectively messier neighborhood. But this was not what the data said. Of course, there was a correlation with these sorts of superficial things and a perception of messiness because we're not totally stupid. But, quote, there was a stronger correlation. What seemed to drive people's sense that they lived in a disordered neighborhood wasn't the visible manifestations of disorder on the streets. It was whether the neighborhood was poor and whether the neighborhood was black. Put differently, our perception of what is messy is not based on objective reality, but on subjective, subconscious biases. If you want more psychological rigor, I recommend Jennifer Everhart's Biased. She's a professor of psychology. I made a few videos about the Rittenhouse trial, and many comments predictably discussed that he was acting in self-defense. But our perception of self-defense depends on our perception of danger, on our perception of disorder, and our perception is not objective. We see whiteness as clean and blackness as threatening, even when there is evidence in our face to the contrary. Part of the cultural debate about whether or not critical race theory should be allowed in schools is the question of whether or not we should allow whiteness to be perceived as threatening. This is one of the psychological victories of contemporary white supremacy. Tamir Rice was a black child with a toy gun and was killed. Kyle Rittenhouse is a white child with a real gun and was allowed to walk free. And shout out to the patrons that made this video possible.